For decades, whispers surrounded the friendship between Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., whispers of loyalty, betrayal, secrets, and a bond so powerful it shook the walls of Hollywood. The Rat Pack was legendary, but behind the smiles, the swagger, and the spotlight, there existed a private world only a few ever witnessed. And as the years passed, those quiet rumors grew louder. That Sinatra protected Sammy in ways no one knew, that he sacrificed things for him behind closed doors, and that he carried guilt that never left him. But the truth remained locked away. Until Sinatra's final years, when the walls he had built for a lifetime finally began to crack. In the moments before his death, when he could no longer outrun the memories or shield the past, he confirmed what everyone had suspected, and it was far more heartbreaking than anyone imagined. Because Sammy Davis Jr. wasn't just a friend to Sinatra. He was the one person Sinatra believed truly understood him, the only man he trusted when fame became too heavy and the world turned cold. But their bond also carried a pain both men tried to bury. Sinatra carried the weight of what he couldn't fix, what he couldn't save, and what he wished he had done differently. And when he finally spoke the truth, he revealed a story of devotion, sacrifice, and regret that changed everything people thought they knew about the Rat Pack. And the most shocking part? The rumors weren't just true. They were only the beginning. Long before the world turned them into icons, before the tuxedos, bright lights, and sold-out stages, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. formed a connection that stunned everyone who knew them. Their friendship didn't come from Hollywood glamour. It came from a sense of loneliness both men carried deep in their souls. Sinatra was already a rising star with a voice that melted crowds, but behind the fame, he struggled with pressure, insecurity, and his constant battle to stay relevant in an unforgiving industry. Sammy Davis Jr., meanwhile, was a young performer fighting battles no one else in the Rat Pack ever had to face. He faced rejection at every corner, endured prejudice on and off stage, and worked twice as hard to earn half the respect. Yet when Sinatra looked at Sammy, he didn't see a rival. He saw a kindred spirit. Their first meeting instantly changed something for both men. People around them often said Sinatra had many acquaintances, but very few real friends. Sammy was one of the only people he let into his inner world. Sinatra admired Sammy's talent, humor, and determination, but there was something more. He admired the strength Sammy showed in a world that tried to break him every day. Sinatra, known for his fiery temper, became fiercely protective of Sammy. He took Sammy into places where no black entertainer had ever been welcomed, threatened club owners who refused him entry, and broke contracts when anyone tried to mistreat him. To the public, this looked like loyalty, but those close to the two men whispered another story, that Sinatra was making up for something he believed he owed Sammy, something rooted deeper than friendship. The rumors grew louder as the years went on. Some claimed Sinatra had stepped in to shield Sammy from powerful men behind the scenes who wanted him gone. Others believed Sinatra felt responsible for the pressures Sammy faced as part of the Rat Pack, pressures that the public never saw. And then there were rumors about private conversations, late-night talks between the two men about fear, betrayal, regret, and things they knew could never be spoken publicly. Every time reporters asked Sinatra about his relationship with Sammy, his answer was the same. He's family. But to those close to them, there was always a feeling that Sinatra left something unsaid. Sammy's life grew harder with fame. Behind the legendary smile were injuries, addictions, and a schedule that drained him. Sinatra stayed close, sometimes stepping in quietly, sometimes loudly forcing Hollywood's hand to do right by his friend. When Sammy lost his eye in the tragic car accident, Sinatra was the first person at his side, refusing to leave the hospital, refusing to let Sammy face the world alone when he was at his weakest. But even that moment carried a rumor that Sinatra blamed himself for pushing Sammy too hard, for not stopping the late-night schedule that left him exhausted before the crash. As the decades passed, their friendship became a symbol of unity, but privately, both men felt the weight of what had been sacrificed. Sammy felt pressure to match Sinatra's status, while Sinatra felt a quiet guilt that he never spoke about publicly. Hollywood insiders whispered that Sammy confided secrets in Sinatra that shook him deeply. Secrets about the toll fame took on him, secrets about how he felt trapped, secrets about the pain he hid behind laughter. And Sinatra, a man known for protecting the vulnerable people he loved, carried those secrets like a burden. But the part that shocked everyone came near the end of Sinatra's life, when he could no longer hide behind jokes or public charm. In those final conversations, when his voice grew weak and memories grew sharp, he finally confirmed that the rumors surrounding his relationship with Sammy Davis Jr. were not only real, they were tied to the one regret he wished he could undo. Whispers surrounded Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr., rumors that seemed to grow louder as time went on, even when neither man ever fully addressed them publicly. Their friendship was unusually close for two megastars in an era defined by strict boundaries, complicated politics, and racial tension. Everywhere they went, speculation followed. Some claimed Sinatra protected Sammy for reasons deeper than friendship. Others said Sammy held influence over Frank that no one else in the Rat Pack ever truly understood. And as their careers soared, these rumors only multiplied, forming a shadow that trailed them both. One of the biggest stories suggested Sinatra used his enormous power in Hollywood and Las Vegas to shield Sammy from those who wanted him pushed out. At the time, casinos were still segregated. Sammy could perform on stage but wasn't allowed to stay in the hotels he entertained. People whispered that Sinatra fought against those rules not just out of principle, but because something unspoken tied them together. Every move Frank made for Sammy was twisted into something else by observers who barely understood the bond the two shared. To many, it seemed unbelievable that a white superstar in the 1950s would risk everything simply to defend a friend. Another rumor focused on the political world. Sammy's involvement with powerful figures, including presidents, led some to believe Sinatra had dragged him into circles far more dangerous than show business. When Sammy faced backlash from certain groups, people speculated that he and Frank had become entangled in a web of influence, favors, and quiet deals behind closed doors. Whether any of this was true didn't matter. People loved creating stories, and newspapers of the time were more than willing to feed those fantasies. Then there were the more personal rumors, the kind that questioned why Frank and Sammy were always together, always looking out for one another. Some claimed Sammy confided in Frank more than anyone else. Others insisted Frank shared secrets only Sammy knew. Their closeness made people uncomfortable, especially in a time when friendships across racial lines were rare and often judged. Their bond challenged expectations, so gossip intentionally tried to shape it into something scandalous or suspicious. As the Rat Pack grew more famous, new waves of stories spread about supposed fights, secret deals, and emotional breakdowns behind the curtain. Insiders whispered that Sinatra became overly protective of Sammy, stepping in whenever he felt the industry was treating him unfairly. Meanwhile, some suggested Sammy sometimes resented Frank's power, believing it overshadowed his own talent. None of these rumors were ever proven, yet they continued to circulate for years, shaping public perception of both men. And then, there was the rumor that seemed to follow them the longest. The idea that Frank Sinatra helped rebuild Sammy's career after the accident that nearly ended everything. When Sammy lost his eye in a tragic car crash, many believed the industry would leave him behind. But Sinatra refused to let that happen. This act of loyalty sparked new speculation. People asked why Frank would go so far for Sammy, risking criticism and backlash in an era where public opinion mattered deeply. But Sinatra never explained. He simply stepped in, as he always had, refusing to leave his friend behind. Through all of this, neither man ever definitively confirmed or denied any of the rumors. They simply kept moving forward, performing together, laughing together, and defying every expectation placed upon them. Their lives became larger than fame, larger than the Rat Pack, and larger than the era itself. The rumors, though persistent, never shook the foundation of what they built. And yet, as Sinatra neared the end of his life, many wondered if he would finally speak about the truth behind those long circulating stories, stories that had shaped the public view of their friendship for decades. As the years moved forward, The bond between Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. faced challenges that would have shattered most friendships in Hollywood. Fame had lifted them both into global stardom, but the pressure that came with it began to reshape their lives in ways neither expected. By the late 1960s, both men were dealing with personal storms, career shifts, political pressures, and deep emotional struggles that slowly changed the energy between them. Their friendship, once effortless and bold, started to carry a weight that could be felt by everyone around them. A turning point came when Sammy began facing intense criticism for his public decisions, especially the ones tied to politics. He had taken actions that many people in the entertainment industry disagreed with, and the backlash was immediate. Influential figures turned against him, and Hollywood's once friendly doors started to close. During this period, many expected Frank to step in with the same fire he had shown earlier in their careers. But Sinatra himself was navigating conflicts. His own reputation was under pressure, and his personal world had shifted dramatically. People close to them recalled moments where Sammy felt abandoned, believing Frank no longer wanted to fight the battles that once defined their brother-like loyalty. At the same time, Frank was dealing with health issues, aging, and a changing industry that no longer revolved around the Rat Pack. The world that made them legends was disappearing. New music, new styles, and new audiences pushed the old guard aside, and Sinatra felt that shift deeply. As he retreated from the spotlight, Sammy stayed on the road, performing endlessly, trying to keep his career strong. Their paths separated, not by choice, but by circumstance. And with that separation came new misunderstandings, assumptions, and unspoken tension that fans never saw. There was also the difficult period when Sammy's financial problems became public. Lavish spending, failed projects, and overwhelming tax issues forced him to work non-stop. The pressure crushed him physically and emotionally. He performed when he was exhausted, traveled when he was sick, and accepted deals he would have once rejected. Rumors formed quickly. Some said Sinatra had stepped away. Others believed Sammy refused help out of pride. The truth lay somewhere in the middle. They still cared for one another, but age and distance had changed the rhythm of their relationship. Even so, there were moments that reminded everyone how deep their bond truly was. One night, when Sammy was struggling through a performance, Sinatra quietly arrived backstage without an announcement. He hugged Sammy, whispered encouragement, and told the staff to give him anything he needed. Those small gestures showed the world what was always true. They were family, even if life had pushed them in separate directions. But the moment that changed everything came when Sammy's health took a frightening turn. Years of nonstop work, stress, and medical complications began to show. Friends said Sammy tried to hide his struggles, but Frank noticed immediately. Despite their distance, Sinatra understood the seriousness of what Sammy was facing. The reality that time was running out hit both men hard. Frank, who had outlived many of his closest friends, now watched another brother fade before his eyes. Their final years together were quieter, more reflective, built on memories instead of public appearances. When they talked, it was no longer about fame or the Rat Pack. It was about survival, regret, forgiveness, and gratitude. They spoke like two men who had shared triumphs and tragedies, victories and wounds, laughter and heartbreak. And in those conversations, something became clear. The rumors that had surrounded them for decades didn't matter anymore. What mattered was the truth only the two of them fully understood. In those late-life moments, Sinatra finally confronted the stories the world had created about them, not through public statements, but through private words, honest reflections, and a quiet acceptance that their journey had been far more complicated and far more beautiful than anyone ever imagined. In the final stretch of his life, Frank Sinatra carried a weight that few people ever saw. The world knew him as a legend, a giant of American entertainment, a man whose voice shaped the soundtrack of an entire century. But behind all of that fame lived a quieter truth. Frank never stopped thinking about Sammy Davis Jr., and the unresolved stories between them stayed with him until the end. As Sinatra grew older, slowing down and reflecting more than ever, he began to speak honestly about the friendship that defined a large part of his life. And in those rare moments of openness, he finally admitted the truth about the rumors that had followed them for decades. People close to Sinatra said that Sammy's absence left a silence he couldn't escape. The two had shared so many years of chaos, brilliance, and heartache that losing Sammy felt like losing a part of his own history. When asked privately about the rumors, about jealousy, about distance, about broken loyalty, Frank would sigh, shake his head, and explain that none of the gossip captured what really happened between them. He confessed that life, fame, and age had created situations they couldn't control. They drifted apart not because of betrayal, but because the world around them changed faster than they could hold on to each other. One of Sinatra's most revealing confessions came in his final interviews, when he spoke about the emotional toll that fame had taken on the Rat Pack. He explained that the world loved the image of them, confident, unstoppable, wild, but behind the scenes, they were just men trying to survive. He admitted that Sammy carried a heavier burden than any of them. As a black entertainer in a brutally divided era, Sammy faced battles the others never had to confront. Sinatra finally acknowledged with sadness that he couldn't protect Sammy from everything. He had fought for him many times, but even his power had limits. He walked a harder road than any of us, Frank once said quietly, and he did it with more grace than people will ever understand. Toward the end of his life, Sinatra also addressed the rumor that he had stepped away from Sammy during his darkest financial and health struggles. He revealed the truth. He never stopped caring. He never stopped checking on him. But as Sinatra faced his own aging body and his own fading strength, he couldn't be the hero he once was. He regretted that deeply. Friends said Sinatra carried that regret like a shadow, wishing he'd found one more moment, one more chance, to fully show Sammy how much he meant to him. He even admitted that the emotional distance between them in the later years was one of the great pains of his life. The world had changed. Their careers had shifted. And old men, even legends, don't always know how to express their love or repair what time has altered. Sinatra finally revealed that some of the rumors were simply misunderstandings amplified by the public. They were never enemies, never rivals, and never as divided as the world assumed. They were two friends trapped in circumstances neither expected. In his most vulnerable reflections, Sinatra spoke about the last time he saw Sammy. He remembered the weakness in Sammy's voice, the exhaustion in his eyes, and the quiet acceptance of a man who knew he didn't have much time left. Sinatra confessed that moment broke him. It was then he realized just how much of his life had been intertwined with Sammy's, and how quickly time had taken it all away. When Sammy passed, Sinatra didn't just lose a friend. He lost the one person who had lived the same stormy, brilliant journey by his side. In his final confession, Sinatra made one truth undeniable. He loved Sammy Davis Jr. like a brother. The rumors, the misunderstandings, the public stories, none of them reflected the reality of their bond. What they shared was loyalty, pain, triumph, laughter, and a connection that survived every rumor Hollywood tried to create. As Sinatra neared the end of his own life, he made peace with what the world never fully understood. The truth was simple. He never stopped caring, and he never stopped missing the brother who had walked beside him through the most unforgettable years of his life.